my goodness, this Denver Broncos defense is going to be nasty, and it is going to get us deep into the months of January and early February, and I think by the end of this video, you will say what I'm saying, which is that this Denver Broncos defense is going to make us forget about the no-fly zone. I'll never forget about them, but I think they are definitely on par. I'm pumped in this video to debut something I've been playing around with. It's an interactive dashboard for our team. We're going to get into that because it's truly all we can get into as we are diving into the second week of OTA. We know Sean Payton is just like my dad, and my dad used to tell me growing up, Ben, if you're really good, you don't have to tell people how good you are. Sean Payton is of that mold, and he's like, I only let the media in there when I absolutely have to, and that's one day a week. So while the Raiders are out there producing their own version of an in-house Hard Knocks, the Denver Broncos are moving in silence, and they're going to let their play on the field do the talking. And so in the meantime, we can definitely hype this team up because there is a lot to be hyped about. So here's what I've created. Once I hear from you in the comments about like, what did I get right or wrong, or what do we want to add to this, I will make this in a public link, and anybody can mess around with it all they want. I'm going to do it for the offense too, if y'all like it. So let's go through here and just look at, I got PFF grades. I got some data about each of these players, and I'm just so hyped to see it. So we know Vance Joseph, again, had a top 3 scoring defense last year. And you look at the Denver Broncos, if they can keep teams under 18 points a game, we're going to win every single game that we are in, because I know Bo Nix and this offense are going to score 21 a game. So that is exactly what we're gunning for. So let's dive in here and start with Pat Surtain. Okay, obviously the defensive player of the year. He's not just the best defender in my mind. He's the best defender according to every single person in the NFL. And you're seeing here, why did he get that rating? Because last year when quarterbacks threw at him and he was in coverage, they had a 58 passer grade. Now, passer grade is not out of 100. It's out of 158. So that'd be a failing grade even if it was out of 100, and it's out of 158. So that's an absolute abysmal F-. 4 interceptions. Like, teams just did not even target him. And because they didn't target him, a lot of times what they would end up doing is picking on Riley Moss. Now, Riley Moss, I wish there was a way here that I could segment how he was before that injury against the Raiders and how he was after that injury against the Raiders, because I truly think he came on. But even with his bad play towards the end, and it wasn't even bad, I still absolutely love me some Riley Moss. He still only allowed a 64% passer rating, like as far as accuracy against him. He had 8 pass breakups. He did allow 60 receptions last year. And the exciting part about having him back is, like, I think he's going to stay healthy throughout the year. And then we went out and we doubled down and we tripled down here on our strength, and that is getting Jahdae Barron. Jahdae Barron, and a unanimous All-American, meaning like everybody thinks he was one of the best players in football, and he actually beat out Travis Hunter for the Jim Thorpe Award, which goes out to your best cornerback. So obviously we know this is a little off because you can only have 11 players on the field, but he's essentially going to be a starter. If you take a look last year at how the Broncos lined up, that about 70% of the time, I'm looking here for Jaquan McMillian, right? So he's playing like 70% of the snaps here, 80%. So we are in that formation, one or another, where you have 3 corners on the field. And so I'd put him out here just because he's going to essentially get 3/4 of all the snaps out there. And so I think that is a massive upgrade. On top of that, you're talking about like when he's not in the game. Well, what happens if hope this doesn't happen, if Pat Surtain goes down with another concussion, if Riley Moss gets hurt, you can swap Jahdae Barron in there. Or you were hearing a ton of hype about how great Chris Abrams-Drain looked, and you remember last year, kind of in the red zone, him picking off Justin Herbert in that game against the Chargers last year. I remember him having a crucial bat down in that game against the Colts. And while it looked like Jerry Jeudy just handed us our lunch, once we swapped out Levi Wallace with Chris Abrams-Drain, we looked a lot better on defense. So when you look here, you are talking the best corner trio in the league without a doubt. And then you add in just an incredible talent in the safety position. So this is first off starting about the guy we stole from the Miami Dolphins, Brandon Jones. A lot of people were sad to see, obviously, to see what's his name, Justin Simmons leave after all those years, but he stepped up and just played amazing. Actually, one of the highest PFF scores in the entire game, that he had an 86 PFF score. About 90 tackles last year, ton of pass breakups. He was just as good in coverage as he was stopping the run, and his coverage grade was 90, which is just pretty wild with how many snaps he had. And then you went out and you got an absolute game wrecker and all-pro player in Talanoa Huffanga. And I think the difference in these two is that like Huffanga is an extension of your run defense. Like he is a heat-seeking missile, and it's just wildly exciting to have him in that mix when you're already talking about one of the best safeties in the game, and then you go out and get a guy who's an all-pro who has been a little bit injury-prone, and so then you were talking about in the background, you got Delarian Turner-Yell. We still obviously have PJ Locke, who puts his heart and soul out for the team, and so when you look here at this back half, I think the nickname of restricted airspace is a great nickname for them. I didn't come up with it. It was all thanks to the chat, some other incredible names, but this defense, that secondary is absolutely wild, and they're going to have guys covered so much that I think our front three are going to get home all of the time. We saw what the Eagles front four did, and our front three together had almost as much pressure as the front four of the Eagles. And so looking there, we start off with John Franklin Myers, and the interesting thing here is that two of these three here are all up for new contracts. We got to figure that out. John Franklin Myers, an absolute game wrecker there, and a steal to go ahead and get him for, just like a 6th-round draft swap with the New York Jets a couple years ago. His PFF grade off the charts again, 82, almost an 83. He was winning on 15% of his pass rushes and is training incredibly hard. Sean Payton made a point to go out and say he's having an incredible offseason. Then one of the first things we did in free agency, this was a team that the San Francisco 49ers had circled DJ Jones. They wanted him badly, and the Broncos outbid him, and he stays with your Denver Broncos. And because he stayed here, we were able to get a couple others. But you look here, his ability to stop the run and to just set the edge. You hear Zach Allen say he's the best nose tackle he's ever played with. And speaking of Zach Allen, just a total game wrecker here, won on almost 20% of his pass rushes. He loves playing in this Vance Joseph system, and basically you add up his total numbers of hitting the quarterback last year, it was double basically what the next one in line was. So it is just absolutely wild plethora of riches that we have right here. Now, these guys, they take an absolute beating. They're going to have to play against the tush push. And so you're wondering like, hey, how are we going to keep all of these guys healthy, and what happens if they don't? Well, we've got adequate depth behind that, obviously knocking on wood. We don't want any of them to go down, but waiting in the wings, I am very, very hyped about Malcolm Roach. He, played incredible last year. He was one of the top-ranked defenders when he was with the New Orleans Saints, and he carried that through in the spurts that he showed up for us last year. We got Uwazurike also waiting in the wings, who had to sit out a season because of that gambling situation. So we're incredibly deep at this defensive line. And in addition to that, we've just got a platoon of edge rushers, which we've got to talk about now. And knowing that if we get into obvious passing situations, you could easily add one of these outside pass rushers up on the line and almost have like a NASCAR package, which we'll talk about in a second. Let's go to that linebacking core and just how wild and ridiculous this is. So obviously it is starting off with Nick Bonito. They were terming him Casa Bonito, like Casa Bonita, the Mexican restaurant that I always got food poisoning at, but allegedly it's good now. So check it out. Dude was on pace to be a defensive MVP, kind of fell off, but you take a look at it. He was number 2 out of 211 other outside edge rushers last year. His PFF score 77, and he's making a fraction of what guys like Joey Bosa, or who's the other one, the guy from the Steelers that is jumping my mind right now, but like 15 sacks last year, 9 tackles for losses, that sick fumble / interception for a touchdown against the Colts. So absolutely ridiculous. And then you go to the other side of the ball here. Jonathan Cooper, absolutely love him. Steal of the draft, a 7th-round draft pick that George Payton could not believe fell to us. Basically only fell to us because he had a heart condition. And just, again, 61 pressures last year, 13 sacks. I think any team in the league would sign up to have a guy on one side with 15 sacks and a guy on the other with 13. And then in addition to that, like, we go so much deeper than that, because you also got Jonah Ellis, the rookie who popped off last year. And you take a look here at, I think it's right here, rookie sack leaders. Like, our guy who barely got any snaps last year, Jonah Ellis, is tied for 3rd last year with rookies. Like, they were, the Miami Dolphins were hyped about Chop Robinson, and like, dude, we're barely behind a guy who got almost all of your snaps. Jonah Ellis gets hurt, still ends up with 5. In addition to that, you're talking him coming back with a vengeance, and is allegedly was hurt for a lot of that last year. And so that's exciting. And then looking at Dondre Tillman, another undrafted free agent that we had last year, another guy with 5 sacks. And anytime we hype up undrafted free agents on this channel and people are like, oh, undrafted guys will never make the team, we called Dondre Tillman making this team and making an impact, and he absolutely did. So I'm wildly excited about both of these outside guys. And then in addition, we've got depth just in the players that are already here. You add in Q Robinson to that, and watch out. So then we go to really the part of this team last year that was a kind of a nightmare at times. Like Alex Singleton was here for a couple of games, tore his ACL and went out. Having him back is going to be crazy. You look here, the last year that he was healthy, he had 122 total tackles, a 63 PFF score. He led the team in tackles. When he was with the Eagles, he led them in tackles. Just him being back and healthy upgrades this room immensely. But we did not stop there. Actually, we went out and got just like a nasty, nasty player in Dre Greenlaw, who comes in with an 82 PFF score. He hit 22 miles an hour in one of the plays he ran in college. A great cover guy, 79 coverage grade, and a great run stopper. So you were talking about our biggest weakness last year is now an area of strength. You add in there the fact that Drew Sanders, who is a high pressure guy and knows how to get after the quarterback, is going to be there. You add in the fact that Sean Payton is wildly high on Lavelle Bailey. I think this is going to truly make us rethink that no team will ever reach what the no-fly zone did, because this defense is absolutely nasty. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about this interactive chart? What stats you want to see me add to this before I throw it in the chat for all y'all to carve up, and I can't wait to do it for our offense as well. But Broncos country, this defense is going to be crazy. It's going to be Bo Nix's best friend. The Broncos are making a deep playoff run, and that is something we can all believe in. Oh, I just nailed the ceiling. Come on!